Hello everyone and welcome to another video with me, Umber Rays, and today no hot takes, no personal opinions, no nothing really in terms of outrage or anything, just gonna be a review of Final Fantasy I's return as well as our new VD unit. And please note, for the sake of this video as well as the next video, I'm turning comments off just because, well, the last video kind of speaks for itself. Alright, so no actual hot takes. Let's just take a look at our two units as well as our summon that is returning, as well as the Final Fantasy I event, because I'm actually quite pleased to see Final Fantasy I return. Warrior of Light has been a really good unit, especially a good unit that I have not had on my account, and he was one that was frustrating back then because he was a unit that I actually did try for and just kind of missed him. There were quite a few URs that showed up on that one back in the day, but not him. Anyway, it's a good chance for old accounts and new accounts to potentially get him, and there's even some free pulls on the JP side that can potentially net him or Death Machine as well, which is great, because taking a really quick look at his EX, I can already tell that he is going to be a return to form in just like how good I think he is actually going to be. Back in the days, early days of Wotv on the JP side, you know, when Warrior of Light came to the game, he was a really big deal. He was a powerful tank. He was capable of really shutting down opposing teams, and he became such a problem that he became a unit that a lot of units that came after kind of became counters slash potentially problematic. Like, the problem that he created really required other units to kind of solve him, and now he's getting an EX, and his EX does kind of look scary. So let's talk about it. First of all, we're going to talk about Warrior of Light, then I'll talk about Death Machine. So Warrior of Light, haven't seen his full stats, but I assume that he's going to be pretty close, all said and done, to UR double cost Mont, with maybe a little bit difference. But taking a look at his new abilities, first of all, Invincible Shield Reinforced is getting improved. That established not only a physical barrier now, but also a magical barrier to allies, which honestly, it was just a very strong ability before. And second ability is Breath of Enhancement of Life, which is its Japanese name, roughly translated. Number of times gets increased, no casting, and recover a certain percentage of own HP. Okay, alright. And last one, his brand new one, is Shine Sword, which is an AoE ability that damages to targets within range medium and causes a regen effect that gradually improves his HP over 3 turns. Warrior of Light already had a lot of HP. He's going to have more HP as a EX unit, and essentially really the improvement that Warrior of Light seems to be getting is that he is going to be a more tanky character. And early on, kind of thought that really, if you looked at him versus our new double cost UR tank, of course the new version of Mont, really thought that Warrior of Light was going to be competing with him, and I don't think he is, for one main reason. One of the things that I think new Mont is very good at is causing the Berserk status effect. And here, taking a look at Warrior of Light, it's very clear that they have kind of shored him up against magic users, which is going to be interesting. If you remember, very recently on the JP side, we've gotten a double cost Dark Mage that has gotten a weapon that also basically has magic resistance piercing. So which is going to come out on top? I don't know. Double cost permanent unit versus a limited regular cost unit. I have to tell you that it'll be kind of interesting to see who is the better of the two units overall. But I do think that Warrior of Light is going to be a much better tanking option, and he will be a really good investment, which is great because I think a lot of globalers also went very hard to get this unit and get this unit up to 99 because he was heralded as being so great. And here I just think they've kind of shored up his kit. I don't think that it's incredible. I don't think that it's going to be an absolute breaker of like all things meta, but I do think that he is going to be once again become maybe even a real serious problem, harkening back to when he first came out, because yeah, he is just, I think, still really good. Talking about our second unit here, or well, second summon here, taking a look at Death Machine. Death Machine is still really, really good. And looking at its 3-star, I don't think that really anything is going to change here. Death Machine was already one of the best tank summons in the entire game, which I was totally jealous about because I didn't get him either. Defense up, evasion rate up, hit rate up, mechanical killer, ice killer, poison resistance, shooting resistance, fire resistance, and summon magic now has been improved to have a slightly increased board for few things, and overall, if he's anything like the other 3-star summons, then he'll be plenty good. If I am to bring up something that I do think, I don't know quite yet about who will come out on top as a better one. There is another fire defensive summon that we have gotten on the JP side more recently that is a really good Esper, and that is Phoenix here. Phoenix came out the same time as Mont and is a pretty darn good defensive summon. Taking a look at its skill tree, I mean, it increases fire attack, which is a boost. Also has defense increases, ice killer, accuracy, strike resistance. So I feel like kind of like maybe Death Machine is being brought up, you know, to a similar level as Phoenix. This Phoenix has strike resistance, which could be more valuable in the next little while. But Death Machine does have, I do want to say, shooting resistance, or shooting resistance on it, which is very good as well, because range units can be potentially problematic. But which one is better? Obviously, having both would be really nice, but if you had the choice, kind of depends what you're fighting and what situation, but two very strong defensive fire elemental summons, one limited, one not. If you can, always recommend getting both, because summons are usually only about 10k to get a guaranteed one. And taking a really quick look at the banners, I love Blue Fields. Blue Fields is one of my favorite Final Fantasy songs ever, by the way. Taking a look at it, yeah, we do have this step up right here, which does guarantee Death Machine at the end. So, I mean, that's potentially nice. I don't remember that back when FF1 first came to the JP side, so might be more, it's probably more of a JP thing that's just really nice. But summon is good. All right, last to talk about is I want to call her Valire because Valentine Salire, but first of all, taking a look at the unit definitely does remind me of another unit in the game, which isn't surprising taking a look at the fact that, well, her main job isn't a unique job. Kind of basically, she reminds me of this unit right here, Garble, and thankfully do have the actual friend unit to show off. So taking a look at what her stats ended up being, 1588 magic. Now this is pretty comparable to Dark Helena. Dark Helena is, of course, the double cost Helena unit that recently came out on the JP side that is an incredibly powerful mage. Taking a look at Saria, she is Saria on the JP side, Salire on the global side. Her stats are really good, but there is something to note here, is the fact that she is an EX level 120, where Garble here is basically he's a 99. And honestly, taking a look at them, they are shockingly pretty similar in terms of stats. Matter of fact, I do feel like if Garble actually had his EX, it would be almost the exact same. The big difference here is that you have an ice elemental mage versus a dark elemental mage. It depends what synergizes well with what units you actually have. Both units are basically the same thing in terms of their main jobs, which is magic elemental damage and very strong magic elemental damage that is also capable of tussling with physical based units. So that is one of the good things about these two units. Taking a look overall at their sub jobs here, I mean, Valentine Salire, or I just need to call her Valentine. Taking a look at her jobs, Time Mage and Black Mage. Black Mage obviously gives her, some good stat support for dishing out elemental damage, and Time Mage gives her some potential good support for team members as well as herself. Taking a look at Garble here. Interesting. He isn't actually proficiency maxed up. Kotodama or Messenger is a really good class as well because it has sure hit abilities, which is something that I've really liked about this character, and Red Mage also has potential support. So really, taking a look at the two units side by side, they seem very similar except for one very distinct point, which is the fact that one of them can get up to level 120 and one of them can get only up to level 99. I think both units are really comparable in almost all the stats, and there is only one thing that really sets Valentine Salire apart, which is her Limit Burst, which is right here, which has an absolutely massive range on it and a special ability that allows her to basically remove buffs from the enemy, which is, or enhancements from the enemy, which is a really strong Limit Burst effect to be had. I don't think that they're, a new unit, new Limit Burst is obviously going to have some new things to it, and I think it's really good here. Taking a look at her Master ability, she does have an Ice attribute up, supporting other Ice units, which is good if you've gone on many different Ice units as well. And she has a good mental defense penetration rate against other enemies. So all of that is very useful. Taking a look at her TMR is much more interesting, and I'll talk about resistance in just a second here. Taking a look at her TMR, it's basically Howlet's TMR except for mages. It allows her to essentially avoid magical damage, or another unit to avoid magical damage, for one essential turn, and that is really, really good. It could be potentially used on units who just are more evadey units, if it can be used on other units like that. But it's kind of nice to see a Howlet version, but for mages, it's just a little too bad that it's on a time-limited unit, because obviously there isn't a ton of time to potentially get this unit maxed, especially after some characters recently have been such high cost that, just can't be potentially done. All right, and then last but not least, talking about this unit, I think I've said that a couple of times now, taking a look at her EX job evaluation. So first of all, she does get a improvement that from one of her abilities will increase her range and reduce her AP consumption. Her second ability, magical power dependent damage to the target, medium, gets a bit of an improvement. And her new ability, Soki Cross, probably not reading that right. Magic dependent damage to target within range after increasing own magic power for 3 turns can be duplicated up to 3 times. This is probably the biggest thing, and I'm curious to see whether or not Garby gets this as well, or Garble is what gets this as well. It's a strong ability with stacking damage, and it's probably one of the things that's going to put her as a powerful contestant mage. If I'm to say anything about where I think this unit is very good, I think that she is very good for PvP and high difficulty content. I don't think that she's going to be incredibly amazing, potentially, because of some of the more strong fire units and double cost UR fire mont being quite a few places. But she still might be able to hold her own. If nothing else, she is resistance against both physical and magical in her own way, and that is generally good. Alright, and last is the Final Fantasy I event, which is returning on the JP side, which has a minor improvement to do with a brand new weapon. For the most part, Final Fantasy I is returned with very little new content to be talked about, but does have some new stuff, including this brand new sword. talk about the sword really quickly, about what is good about it. It is essentially a coral sword for light elemental characters, and that makes it a highly desirable thing. As a matter of fact, this is one of the weapons I would put, if you are seriously into this game, you need to at least farm 2 of these. One for physical-based characters and one for magical-based characters. The 2 characters that I am specifically thinking about for this, other than the fact that a coral sword for light elemental characters is really valuable, there are a couple of characters that spring to mind. Needless to say, there are quite a few sword users in the light element and could be more in the future. Taking a look at Ramza, first of all, comes to mind, who could benefit both from the physical version of this as well as the magical version of this. Thancred, which I'm sure a lot of people are happy I mentioned him. As well as Cecil, and talking about a lower cost character as well, one that I think is actually way better than I probably give her credit, and probably do just need to, you know what, I'll even just, that's how good I think she is. I'm even just really thinking I just need to build her. She is a really good unit, and I think that she will benefit greatly from a coral-based sword. Her master ability is basically already some initial hate for her, and she has Arithmetician as well as Spellblade, some powerful magic elements, and she has good speed because she also has Thief. This is a really good unit, and I think one of the things that's been holding a lot of light sword characters back is the fact that they don't have really good equipment, and even their sub-jobs kind of require them to have something to support the light element. And this new sword, not only is it really good for both physical and magical, it has decent physical stats, but also really good in the magic version. It also has really good mage stats too. This is just a good get for light sword users, so that is great. One thing to note also, which globalers may not know at this point, something that has started to crop up on the JP side is the fact that newer based equipment is actually requiring very specific crafting material. Now, if I could just find where that new sword is. I haven't seen it enough, so it hasn't. I did not look for this before starting the video. That's fine. I'll show it off with this piece of equipment. A lot of the newer pieces of equipment on the JP side are starting to come with limited crafting material. Now, this is probably just for, you know, more special event stuff, but it could also continue, and I am keeping an eye on it because it could mean that if you don't farm enough of it before the event is done, you may be just permanently limited with no way of getting it after. Thankfully for the Final Fantasy I event, I will say that this was a great move from Gumi and the developers on this one. If you were to farm from something like, let's say, Story right here, you can actually get this brand new crafting material from Story as well as the Final Fantasy I event missions. So in terms of getting this brand new crafting material, seems pretty easy. Seems that they went a good route for making it easy for players to get. They'll be interested to see how limited this could be or how many times we will see this going forward. It is a little bit nice as well to potentially space out the crafting material, because guess what? If you're not needing to use the same piece of crafting material for every single piece of equipment, it kind of potentially reduces the stress of farming. And if you are getting just more than enough from even a limited event, then I don't think it's a problem. So yeah, great weapon to be added. Kind of do wish that Final Fantasy I would have added a brand new character to, potentially in Garland or Princess Sarah, or heck, I'm not super familiar with a ton of Final Fantasy I stuff, but it would have been nice to see a little bit more new stuff come to the event. But the sword is a really good get, and Warrior of Light, is general overall thoughts about him is I think he's just going to be just ridiculously good tank again for all pieces of content. Death Machine will be a solid summon, but potentially not without a counterpart that is non-limited, but a pretty easy way to get him as well now. And last but not least, in terms of Valentine Salire, I think overall, I think that she's just garble with an EX job and a fancy TMR. Definitely a strong unit, but a limited time unit after a bunch of high cost units may just be too much for some people to get. So yeah, that is my thoughts basically on all the new stuff, and for everyone here who is looking for my response to certain stuff in a future video. But anyway, thank you for watching, take care, and see you next time.